the scoop, pouring out the passion, yeah, the lead in the truth. Every episode party, grab your friends and cheer. In this podcast palace, we got the atmosphere. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Bobo and Cramer, yeah, the stand of the lost, taking on the world, and they're never gonna stop with that New York grit, rising to the top, get loud. Feel electric sound with every single word. You never gonna frown. From the Netline Giants to the Madison Square, Bobo and Cramer, yeah, this man can get it out. Whoa, whoa, Bobo and Cramer, yeah, the stand up to loud, taking on the world, and they're never gonna stop with that New York grit. They're rising to the top. Get alive. Where the legends play, Bobo and Cramer leading the way, breaking plastic slides, shout it out loud, and the best in the house, we're rocking the town, and the best in the house, we're rocking the town, and the best in the house, we're rocking the town, and the best in the house, we're rocking the town.
And that's right, everybody. Welcome back once again to another edition of the Best Seat in the House podcast. As always, I'm your host, Rob Kramer, joined by my co-host, the great Daniel Bobo Curlin. And Dan, how you doing tonight, buddy?
I'm doing good. I'm actually going to be, tomorrow, I'm actually taking part in this, they're recreating some of the games from Season 2 of Squid Game, promoting Season 3 at a little thing in, I think it's a Domino Park in Brooklyn. They're going to recreate some of the games in Squid Games. Sand's the part where you're going to get killed. No one's going to get killed here, but aside from that, it's a recreation. It's a recreation of the games in Squid Games, and I managed to lock up a free spot to take part in it. So you might see footage of me taking part in that.
All right, so that's something to check out for on social media. So have fun at that tomorrow. Yeah, today was the Juneteenth holiday, so a lot of people had off today. I was hoping, actually, that today being getaway day in Atlanta, the Mets are going to have a day game today, but of course it is a night game, and it has been the usual torture that it is each time the Mets go to Atlanta, Dan. So let's just start there. And this whole downward spiral we're going to be talking about for the Mets started this past weekend with a dominating sweep at the hands of the Rays. You come in there after that series, and you could kind of say to yourself, all right, the Mets have been really good so far this year. They're coming off a really strong stretch. Maybe they just had a bad weekend against the Tampa Bay Rays, who are still playing pretty well right now. They actually came back after being down 8-0 in their game yesterday. So, the Rays are showing some life there and everything, Dan. But then it comes to Atlanta, and that's where the Mets go to die each year. The only outlier being last year's game 161, but they came in on Tuesday, had a 4-1 lead. David Peterson's cruising into the 8th inning. Next thing you know, boom, 5-4 loss in 10 innings. Yesterday, dominated by Chris Sale, 5-0 loss. Dan, what are your thoughts on how this series has gone so far? It's been terrible.
I have no freaking clue what is going on. Worst time to have pitching issues, especially we got to face the Phillies the next week. Mets better win. Mets better win today and tomorrow. That's all I can tell you. They better find a way to win.
Well, today is the last game of the series. We play the Phillies tomorrow.
Yes, so we got to win today. We got to win today against the Braves, and we got to take 2 out of 3 against the Phillies.
Yeah, and we're going to be talking about that. Yeah, man, you're right, because we're going to be talking about that series, with the Phillies in a minute, and that's not going to be getting any easier as Friday night's series is going to be kicking off against one of the worst free agent decisions the Mets have ever made, letting Zach Wheeler walk. He's going to be the opposing pitcher on Friday night, so that's not going to be fun.
That is not good, and the Mets got to keep the game as low scoring as possible to have a chance to win this. That's all I can tell you. They got to keep it close.
Well,
and
Yeah.
And the other thing I got to say, it's because of a dumb decision because Steve Cohen bought the team 1 year too late.
Well, that is true to a certain extent, but you can thank Brody Van Wagenen's genius for letting Wheeler walk. But we'll get into Zach Wheeler in a minute, Dan. Let's focus on this just crap Brave series that we've been forced to watch so far. As you can see on the screen, like we were talking about earlier, 4-1 lead the Mets had on Tuesday night. It looked like, the Mets were going to cruise to this one. And I thought I had no problem with David Peterson coming out for the 8th inning. I don't know what you thought. David Peterson still had a very good pitch count. He was dominating going into that spot. But then you turn around and all of a sudden, Dan, it's, David Peterson gets 2 guys on. They turn around again. Now you have, just even more than that, man. It was just crazy. And then Reed Garrett comes in and just gives it up, no problem. What did you think? Did you have a problem with him leaving Peterson in, or would you have pulled Peterson at that point?
I would have let Peterson in. Hands down, I would have let Peterson in. The other thing I gotta say, freaking Alvarez, dude, saying I'm starting to doubt Alvarez and as a catcher. Freaking too many pass balls led to me yelling out, "Nice game, pretty boy!" Like, I was just furious. Like, anyone who was in the room with me that game saw me cursing up one heck of a storm. I I may have been silent the next day. I was silent yesterday because like a game that we couldn't give up. We couldn't give up any runs. The worst thing you could do against that pitcher is not keep the game close.
Yeah, man, you're absolutely right about that.
And I'm starting to wonder. I'm hoping that this pitching isn't wearing off. And I'm starting to debate is like, we got to go all in on our trading deadline.
Oh, yeah. And especially, have you seen Montas in the minor leagues still? This guy has been so awful, man. It's ridiculous. He's got over a 12 ERA and 5 starts down there.
Yeah, and I'm starting to wonder, this dumpster diving thing isn't always going to work. And I think Big Nose David Stearns needs to get that in his head, that this shit isn't going to work. Get a real pitcher for once.
You're absolutely right about that. And
this team needs a real pitcher, and these prospects that he's hoarding better show up and better live up to the expectations. Otherwise, I'm going to be really doubting.
No, you're right about that, buddy. But before we continue, actually, real quick, I noticed that our viewer count was higher than it's ever been. We got almost 400 people watching us live on X right now. And actually, the reason for that was Anthony Cumia retweeted your tweet promoting our show. So want to give a shout out to the great Anthony Cumia. Thank you for the retweet.
Yep, I just gotta say a big shout out to Anthony. Thank you, Anthony. Thank you wherever you are. I just wish I could freaking thank you and just give you a round of applause in person wherever you are. But a long distance high five to you, Anthony. Long distance high five to you. You're doing a wonderful job with your new show on WABC. I've been listening. I've been listening weekly. You're doing a wonderful job. I'm enjoying the show, pulling off a miraculous comeback, which I'm happy that Anthony's pulled off. Things are right in the world with Anthony back on terrestrial radio.
You're right. And he's been doing a fantastic job, like you said. I've been listening weekly myself, and the special treat is, once a month or so, getting the him and Jimmy shows. So I've absolutely been loving those. Thank you once again, Anthony. Very, very cool. And so, yeah, Dan, just to keep it rolling along here, talking about the Mets' awful week in Atlanta. And then they blow the game on Tuesday night where they have the 4-1 lead in the 8th we just talked about. You knew, by the way, as soon as that game went into the extra innings and it was coming up, and the Mets didn't push the Manfred fake runner in from second base in the 10th, you knew they were not going to win that game, right? I mean, as soon as it went to the bottom of the 10th tied, in my opinion, the game was over.
Yeah, so that just annoyed me. I also admit that whenever the Mets play against the Braves, I will not listen to any music by any artist from the state of Georgia during this whole series.
Are you going to listen to the devil that the devil went down to Georgia though?
I don't know about that. I don't even know if that artist is from Georgia, but
Well, this is Charlie Daniels band.
Yeah, I think he was from Georgia. But yeah, that these whole 3 days, I was not anything I listened to on Spotify. I was not listening to any artist, specifically no artist from Georgia this whole series. And this
maybe you should start listening to artists from Georgia and change things up a little bit, man.
Yeah.
We got to change this mojo up a bit.
Yep, exactly. And I have to say, maybe someone needs to make a call to this guy and have him show up and bring back this mojo, because when it comes down to it, you can't kill the Grimace.
The executive producer making a cameo here.
Yep, nothing can kill the Grimace.
Nothing could kill the Grimace. You're absolutely right about that. And Dan, looking at the game yesterday, that game was even worse. At least the Mets gave us hope in game 1. In game 2, it was dead from the first inning on. You knew against Chris Sale, when Paul Blackburn gave up 3 runs off the bat, it was cooked. And then that, seemed to be the case through the entire game, losing 5-0. Yeah,
exactly. And I feel this is someone who last year David Stearns should have signed. The Mets should have signed Chris Sale. I kept saying it all season that year. He is someone the Mets should have taken a flyer on, should have signed.
Well, the thing is, too, what happened with him, and I agree with you, but it wouldn't have been as easy as just signing him, because remember, he was with the Red Sox, and he was coming off all these injuries for years and years where he really hadn't been the same pitcher. And all of a sudden, the Braves traded last year. You remember that second baseman that had like a really good second half a couple of years ago named Grissom Vaughn, a guy that had about 2 months of good baseball in him and hasn't played well since. He's been terrible with the Red Sox, but they actually traded Chris Sale for Grissom Vaughn, and the Braves got a Cy Young out of it. And, the one thing that did work out in our favor, though, was him missing out on the playoffs and his last start that was supposed to be against the Mets last season in game 161. And luckily that didn't work out, where he ended up not making that start against the Mets. And the Braves ended up getting knocked out in the first round, and the Mets advanced.
Yeah, exactly. And I also feel like the Mets could have benefited to that, because I feel like they could have got Chris. You know why I think the Mets could have got Chris Sale easily? Because the Red Sox are good at making horrible trades. It's like in their history.
That's a good point. You bring that up, actually, too. Let's talk about that for a sec. What do you think about the Devers deal?
That was a terrible trade. I was talking to a Red Sox fan at my job. There was someone at my job who's a Red Sox fan. I was telling him, I says, man, your team is horrible at making trades. You guys made some horrible trades in your history, going all the way back to that Babe Ruth trade. If you want to go all the way back there, you guys are the history of bad trades. I told him that.
Yeah, no, it's true, man. And you look at what they got back in this trade too. So if you're not familiar with what we're talking about, the Red Sox traded one of their cornerstones on their team, Rafael Devers, who this is a guy that came up as a young kid, won a championship with them. He's been one of the more deadly left-handed bats in baseball for the last couple of years. And they turned around and traded him for a very, very mediocre package of players that they got back, something the Mets could have easily matched, but then again, we can't even go crazy about that too, because you have to figure if the Mets did trade for Rafael Devers, that's probably the end of Pete Alonso, because you're not going to pay both those guys that amount of money. So I'd rather have Pete. But, the fact is, Dan, when you look at, this trade and the Red Sox history of trades over the last couple of years, between this trade and Mookie Betts, what did they get back in these trades from the Dodgers and now the San Francisco Giants, where they got back one decent pitching prospect, but they got back another guy in single A ball this time. And the only guy they got back in the Mookie Betts trade was really Alex Verdugo, and he's already been off their team for a couple of years at this point. So it just goes to show the Red Sox have really given away two of their last biggest stars.
Yeah, exactly. And as I said before, if you want to go further back, they traded Babe Ruth for next to nothing. So they hit. I told the Red Sox fan, I guess it's in your guys' history.
Yeah, apparently history once again repeats itself up in Boston, just as it's repeating itself right now in Atlanta. The years of torture that us Met fans have endured from the Atlanta Braves. We have not been spared anything over the last two games. It's now extended the Mets to a 5-game losing streak, a season high. They haven't had a losing streak that long since May of 2020. Remember when they really bottomed out last year? And things, were pretty much as low as it gets. Jorge Lopez, the former relief pitcher, is throwing his glove in the stands and getting released after the game. And then the next thing you know, Grimace throws out the first pitch, and the Mets are in the NLCS. So, it just shows you how quickly things can change on a dime in a baseball season because of how long it is, too. It's not like, hockey or basketball or even football, where if you have a bad month, you could be cooked. Look at the Rangers. The Rangers had a really bad November and December this year. They also kind of closed the season on a bad note, too, but that's really because they were cooked already. But when you look at November and December, that's what sunk the Rangers. And that's all it takes. In baseball, you can have a bad half of a season, which is, 3.5 months, and still make the playoffs. So, just goes to show the how different baseball is. But, yeah, Dan, I mean, I do want to give some credit, too, to David Peterson, who threw a gem on Tuesday night. 7 innings pitched, 5 hits, 3 runs, 3 walks, 3 Ks. The thing is, though, too, his line should be better because he didn't allow those 2 runs to score. He left them with runners on first and second, nobody out. Reed Garrett came in, almost got out of it, but recent Met killer Marcell Ozuna, who's driven in, I think Gary Cohen said last night, he's driven in 24 runs in his last 15 games against the Mets. So Marcell Ozuna has really killed the Mets over the last couple of years since 2023. And Reed Garrett wasn't able to get him out. It was a bases clearing double that tied the game. Mets would go on to lose it late. But, we got to give some credit to David Peterson because he once again turned in a really, really great outing.
Yeah, I have to give credit. He's turned out to be a much better pitcher than I really expected early on. Because, early on, I wasn't sure what to make of him. But he's turned out to be better. And I'm hoping he continues this up as the situations become even bigger and bigger. Because it's only going to get bigger from here on out, the situations. They're going to face some tough opponents. It's going to be a really big down the stretch run. And it's gonna be real interesting seeing what everything that's gonna happen the next couple of weeks. And I'm pumped for it, and I'm hoping that the Met fans, do yourself a favor, show up, outnumber the fucking Philly fans when the Mets play against the Phillies and the Braves. Outnumber the Philly fans. That's all I ask you to do. Show the fuck up. Less red, no red in Citi Field.
That's true.
Orange and blue. I want to see of orange and blue.
And we'll have a chance.
A hostile environment for Philly fans.
Well, it's going to be in Philly this weekend, but starting on Monday, that'll be the 4-game series against Atlanta, where the Mets will have a chance to, I guess, get some revenge for what they did to themselves this week. And that's the thing, too. That's what made hurt. That's what, hurt most about losing on Tuesday night, because you knew when they were going against Chris Sale the next day that it was going to be, an uphill battle. Chris Sale always dominates the Mets, and the Mets bats, they've been pretty decent this year, but they've also been non-existent at times.
Yeah, exactly. So it's got me nervous going into this game, and please win. And I'm hoping there's no rain going into this game. Please, no rain against the.
No rain.
Oh, it's a miracle in Atlanta, because it seems like every time the Mets are in Atlanta, there's rain.
Yeah, well, they had the rain delay on Tuesday. They had the tarp on the field before the game on Wednesday. So you're right. It always seems that way. And Bobo, you got a fan in the audience right here. As Hispanic Sean King says you're looking very handsome today. So there you go. You've got a fan in the audience there. Thank you, Hispanic Sean King. And And yeah, so Dan too. I just want to give him some credit there, and also I'm not trying to hate on Paul Blackburn. Paul Blackburn is a very good pitcher. I think the Mets have kind of tried to bounce him a little, around a little bit this year. They had him start that game in LA. He's appeared a couple of times out of the bullpen. Now he returned to the rotation yesterday, against the Braves, which, the Braves are 6 or 7 games under 500 now. They've had a very bad, uncharacteristic start to this season, but they are a dangerous team, man. We cannot take the Braves lightly based on their record,
Yeah, exactly. Beat them, kick them down, and continue to kick the Braves and the Phillies. Kick them while they're down. Strike first, strike hard, strike fast. No mercy. Pain does not exist in this dojo.
Yeah, oh, well, pain exists in this dojo, though, if you're a Met fan, Dan. We are very, very familiar with pain, unfortunately, and the Mets have given us quite a bit of that over the last couple of days. So let's hope that the pain comes to an end tonight, as Joe Beningo would say, oh, the pain. And tonight, the Mets have a good shot, although, once again, we can't sit here and look at Spencer Strider, who we're going to talk about in a sec. This is so the Mets, the pitching matchup is Clay Holmes for the Mets tonight, 7-3, 2.87 ERA, going against Spencer Strider, who, if you look at that record, 1-5, 4.35 ERA, you think to yourself, okay, maybe the Mets could take advantage of this guy when he's not pitching his best, but he is coming off a win. This is a guy, too, that's coming off Tommy John surgery, so he's just starting to get back into himself. This is a guy that won 20 games 2 years ago in 2023, so you can't sit here and look at his record and think to yourself, oh, the Mets are going to knock this guy around tonight. That's going to be a walk in the park,
Yeah, exactly. I feel this game is going to be nervous. It's going to be, I'm sorry to everyone if there's going to be a lot of cursing all the way until the last out. And hopefully there'll be me cursing after a Mets win, because win or lose, I'm cursing up a storm.
I'm with you too. But you know what, Dan? I want to thank Anthony Cumia once again for the retweet, because for the first time ever, we actually have over 1,000 people watching us live right
now. Whoa! bro, you know who else is happy we're getting that many views today? My mom! Whoa!
You know who I feel sorry for? My mom!
All right, so thank you, Anthony, for the retweet, and thank you, everybody, on this Thursday night.
I'm telling you, believe me, if Anthony wasn't so far away, I'd have my sister or something grill up some. I'd have my sister grill up some burgers or something to drop off to him as a thank you. If he wasn't so far away, because I really appreciate that boost that Anthony gives up. That I cannot express how much I am appreciative of that. Someone I've been a fan of since I was a teenager, and he's just retweeted us and hyped us up. So I got to give a lot of props to that.
No doubt about it. Thank you, Anthony, for giving us the Cumia boost today, and we very much appreciate it. It's a very cool, very nice thing of him to do. And so big matchup tonight, Dan. Clay Holmes on the mound, Spencer Strider. This is Clay Holmes' chance to really step up and be the stopper. Let's not forget he's the guy that did start opening day for this team. So, at least a certain respect, the Mets view him as the number one. So let's see if he can cement that tonight, especially with half the rotation going down. We can't forget Tyler McGill, who I have been very, very I've had a short fuse with Tyler McGill over the last couple of years. He's really gotten on my nerves, but you know what? He's going to be out for the next month with an injury, and that's not a good thing. As much as I don't like Tyler McGill, the Mets are very thin on the pitching right now. They've run through a lot of their depth, and even though Montas and Sean Manaea are on the way back, we can't be seeing too many pitchers go down, which is why tomorrow, Dan, in the spot that Tyler McGill would have been pitching in, there's going to be a spot starter going against Zach Wheeler. That spot starter would have been Paul Blackburn had Kodai Senga not gotten hurt, but he had to take his spot. So now it's probably going to be a kid from the minor leagues, possibly Sprout, possibly Tidwell. What do you think, and who would you put in this spot?
I'd probably, at this rate, I guess, take a chance on Sprout. And if he pitches well, give him another start. That's what I say.
Yeah.
At this
I can
point,
see
you're
that.
gonna. At this point, it's all hands on deck. If he's shown his worth again against the start against the Phillies in a must win game like this, he's earned it.
Yeah, well, you have to remember now, too, it might not be the Mets' decision if he gets more than one start, because the Mets probably are going to petition the league, talking about Montas now. So when you come back on a rehab assignment, they start a clock on you when you make your first appearance, and it's a 30-day clock. Now, Montas in these 30 days has made, I believe, 6 starts now. He's also allowed 8 home runs in those 6 starts and has not looked good with a 12 ERA. So the Mets are probably going to petition the league to extend his rehab assignment and maybe give him a couple of extra, starts, maybe even just one extra start just to try to straighten himself out. But that's going to be totally up to the league. And from what I heard, it's going to be tough to get that approved because you have to kind of show the league that it can't just be based off bad results that he had in his minor league rehab assignment. It has to be more like he's still working his way through an injury. So it's going to be tough to see how the Mets work the league on that one. But we're going to have to see if they even extend it, because don't forget, that was his last start. If the league chooses not to accept it, Frankie Montas is pitching against the Braves at Citi Field next week, whether we like it or not, because there's nobody else to throw in there. If Tyler McGill or Kodai Senga weren't hurt, you maybe could throw Montas in the bullpen. But with both those guys down, Montas is coming back in that rotation, whether we like it or not.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm just very nervous about this one.
Yeah. So it's going to be a big thing there for the Mets now to at least try to win this game tonight, especially going against Zach Wheeler. Because could you imagine if the Mets lose this game tonight? So they got swept against the Rays, they got swept against the Braves in Atlanta, and now they're going into Philly trying to face Zach Wheeler to avoid a 7-game losing streak. So that's an uphill battle that you don't want to put yourself in. So let's hope the Mets can beat Spencer Strider and the Atlanta Braves tonight, and do what the Yankees did, Dan, because let's switch over to the Yankees now, as the Yankees ended up losing they stopped their losing streak today, and they have a 7-3 win over the Angels at Yankee Stadium. The Yankees had lost their last 6 games. They'd score 7 runs in their last 7 games. They'd look really bad. This is as bad as I've seen the Yankees look in a long time. I think they had a 9-game losing streak in 2023, which is the longest losing streak I've ever seen the Yankees have. So it's at least been 2 full years since we've seen the Yankees look this bad. And that's probably the only instance you could find from the last 80 years of the Yankees looking that bad, and or at least 40, to be fair, since the Stump Merrill days. But Dan, when the Yankees go out there and set the tone, the Mets and the Yankees this year have had a lot of parallels where they both started off really good. They both kind of went into a lull for a little while, and now they got really hot again, and now have both hit extended losing streaks at the same time. So maybe we can learn something from them today, as the Yankees went out there and did what they needed to do. Grisham and Goldschmidt smashing back-to-back home runs in the second inning, and the Yankees never looked back.
Yeah, I got to get credit at Goldschmidt. He's panning out a lot better than I expected. I was wondering how much the Yankees were going to get out of Goldschmidt, being how late in his career he is.
Yeah, Goldschmidt's been great. He's been a borderline all-star this year for the Yankees. There's a couple of really good American League first basemen, but Grisham's going to be in that mix, no doubt about it. I want to give a shout-out to Lee Slater hanging out with us in the chat. Let's go, Cramer and Bobo. Thank you. Appreciate it, hanging out with us there. And throwing a little Let's Go Mets as well. So got to love that. And, just to stick with the Yankees now, Dan, too. The Yankees got exactly what they were looking for today. Just like the Mets need their starter to go and give them a good outing today. That's what the Yankees got from Carlos Rodon. 6 innings pitched. It wasn't the best, but he was able to pitch good enough to get them a W today. 6 innings, 4 hits, 3 runs, 1 walk, 7 Ks. He's got a chance to be on the American League All-Star team too. 9-5 with the 3.10 ERA.
Yeah, so you got to get credit. He's pitching to where he's expected. He's gotten a shot with the Yankees, and he's running with it. He's had an up and down career, and he's having one of his better years, and rightfully deserved. He should be pitching in the All-Star game without a doubt.
Yeah, and the other guy too that is dominating for the Yankees this year, and he's going to be pitching tomorrow. As a matter of fact, when the Yankees open up their next series at home against the Baltimore Orioles, that's Max Fried, and this guy is the front runner right now to not only be on that All-Star team, he's going to be the starter on that All-Star team. His first year in the American League, first year with the Yankees, coming over from the Atlanta Braves, and their big free agent prize in the offseason. It started off pretty damn well, his Yankee career. 9-2, 1.89 ERA. Best first half so far as a Yankee since the great Masahiro Tanaka started off 14-2 in his first year as a Yankee with an ERA under 2. So, Tanaka didn't really have that great of an extended run with the Yankees, but especially those first couple of years, he was off the charts. So if you're getting compared to that kind of start, you're in pretty good company, right?
Yeah, exactly. You're in pretty good company, and Max Fried is panning out as well. There was question marks about him, but he's turning out to finally he's not going through on and off injuries, and it's showing what he can do. And he's having a nice bounce back, and you got to give a round of applause to that.
Yeah, he's now 7-0 for the Yankees this year following a loss. So he has been that stopper we're talking about. Now, obviously, he won't be following a loss this time as he's going against the Orioles tomorrow, the day after the Yankees stop their losing streak. But just goes to show when you're 7-0, it just that he does not let these losing streaks continue for the Yankees and get longer and longer. He is the stopper that they paid for. And, it would have been real interesting to see how that 1-2 punch looked this year if the Yankees actually had a healthy Garrett Cole with Max Fried, because that really could tip the scales in their favor, especially if they had that in the playoffs last year, potentially even in the World Series against that Braves team. It would have been real interesting to see how that worked out. And Dan, we were talking about the Yankees' offensive struggles, how they'd only scored, they scored 7 runs today at Yankee Stadium in this day game, but they had only scored 7 runs in their 7 previous games, which is the lowest amount the Yankees have done, I believe, since 1968. So it's been a long time since the Yankees had a run of futility that long. And not shockingly, this is probably the biggest reason why. Aaron Judge during that time period was in a 3-for-26 slump, hitting only 1 home run, driving in 3 RBIs, and this guy that was flirting with 400 for most of these first 2.5 months of the season, his batting average has dropped down now to about 370, which still is crazy. I mean, still for June to be hitting 370 is nuts. But, that average has dropped. So it's not really shocking that the Yankees have struggled when Judge hasn't produced,
Yeah, exactly. The Yankees are only as good as how far Judge can produce. But I feel like the other thing is the Yankees, I feel like we're underestimating their opponent. That is one of the worst things you could do is underestimate the opponent. I feel like the Yankees weren't taking their opponent seriously. And if you take your opponent lightly, it bites you in the ass.
Really? So you think so which team are you talking about? Do you think the Yankees, because they played the Red Sox this weekend, and they got beat up against the Red Sox, just like the Mets got beat up against the Rays last weekend. They lost all 3 games to start that losing streak. So I don't think you're talking about the Red Sox, but do you think that the Yankees took the Anaheim, California, Los Angeles, whatever their name are, Angels, you thought they took them lightly?
Yeah, I feel like they took the Angels lightly, I feel like.
Wow. Wow, that's a serious accusation for a team that was coming off a losing streak already at that point.
Yeah, exactly. I just felt the Yankees thought it was going to be an easy bounce back against a team like the Angels when they were kind of underestimating. The Angels are having a pretty good year, surpassing a lot of expectations going into the season.
Well, they're hanging around 500, which a lot of people did not think they were going to be. Especially they had a bad year last year, the year after losing Ohtani, especially not only bad in the year that they had themselves, but bad in the fact that they had to sit there across town and watch Ohtani tear it up, win the MVP and a World Series in the same year. And now they're in the same situation. So they still have they have a better team than last year, but they're still hanging around 500, and that's what they need to do to at least keep themselves relevant right now. And taking 2 out of 3 from the Yankees was definitely a big step in the right direction for that Angels team. And it's a kick to the balls for the Yankees. It's a blow to their morale too, because they were clearly for most of this year the best team in the American League. I don't think there was really any debating that. The American League West is very mediocre. The American League Central is okay, but it's kind of, the White Sox are bad. They're not as bad as they were last year either, but they're really bad, and they kind of make all the other teams in that division better by comparison. And in the American League, the Rays have gotten hot lately. The Red Sox are kind of hanging around 500, although trading Devers might be the final blow to their season. But the American League, I still consider the Yankees the best team in the American League. What do you think?
Yeah, exactly. So far, I really feel like the American League is a very weak opponent. The rest of the American League, I feel like.
And so okay, if you're going to say that they are a weak opponent, which I guess you could say, it's definitely weaker than the National League, especially Devers moving over to the National League now too, makes the Giants that much better. So who would you say is the biggest threat to the Yankees in the American League then?
I feel like the biggest threat, Seattle could be a dark horse in this.
Now, what makes you say that? They're starting pitching?
Yeah, I feel like their pitching could be a dark horse in the American League.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that. They've also been pretty mediocre this year, but they could be good enough to take that division because the Angels look like they're hanging around 500. The A's are terrible as always. The Astros are still a decent team, but they're not as good as they've been. So I could definitely see that with that pitching and everything, them stepping up. But they're probably going to have to make a trade to bring a bat in to really compete with the Yankees on that level. Even though they've been getting, I mean, have you seen this guy, Cal Raleigh, their catcher out there, is leading Aaron Judge in home runs. He's got like 26, 27 home runs. And it seems like every time you turn around, this guy is hitting more. So there's a guy not named Ken Griffey Jr. on the Mariners right now that's on pace for about 50-plus home runs. So that just goes to show how crazy that is. And, other than that, Dan, Julio Rodriguez was the one guy in that lineup, too, that the Mariners had really been counting on to get some offense out of. And he just really hasn't had that breakout season, at least this year. And he's had breakout years in the past, but you know what I mean? It's not up to his standard, I guess. He's been very mediocre this year. Even going through the All-Star votes, I've wanted to vote for him, but there have just been other guys more deserving of him on the ballot. So he's just not having that season they need. And if the Mariners are going to go anywhere and be a threat to the Yankees, they're going to need Julio Rodriguez to step it up and probably one more bat in that lineup.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like there's going to be 2 opponents that the Yankees might have to worry about. It's Seattle and probably have to worry about the Rays down the line.
Yeah, it's funny you say that too, because if you asked me about a week or 2 ago, I would have told you, nobody cares about the Rays. Nobody's thinking about the Rays. It's nothing that I'm sure the Yankees aren't paying one bit of attention to them, but they've been so hot over the last week or two now. You have to consider the Rays a threat. I'm not impressed by their roster. We just saw it last week, but we also saw them beat the crap out of a pretty good Mets team. So, you have to give all the credit in the world to Kevin Cash and that Tampa Bay Rays team as they continue to be relevant, only a couple of games behind the
Yeah,
Yankees
and
after this recent losing streak.
yeah,
Yeah,
and I just feel like they're just playing with a looseness because they don't have all that weight on the world on them because no
yeah,
one's
that's
expecting
true.
anything from them. So they're just playing with. I feel like they're just playing with house money, and they're just it's working in their favor.
Yeah, I really thought that, because this is the first year they're not playing in Tropicana Field, their ballpark that they've had since they broke in the league in '98. And a lot of people don't like that field. I was actually there a couple of years ago for a Mets Tampa Bay Rays preseason game. Sure, it's a crappy stadium, but I actually kind of liked it. I thought it had a little bit of charm to it. It was a good old stadium for the most part, albeit very bare bones to what we're used to these days. But I do have to say that I thought that not playing in that crappy ballpark was going to be, a detriment to this team this year because they are going to be playing their whole season using a minor league ballpark. The Yankees, George Steinbrenner Field is their home park for this season because of the damage from the hurricane last season that it did to the Tampa Bay Rays ballpark, Tropicana Field. So that's going to be out the door now. And they're playing at George Steinbrenner Field, and it hasn't really affected them at all. They're almost 10 games over 500. They're in the AL wildcard hunt. They're a very relevant team right now. They're going to be probably buyers at the deadline at this point. And hey, and even too, did you see that it looks like their principal owner, who fans have vilified for years, I believe his name is Stuart Steinberg, is set to sell the team to a couple of new owners. So you know what? No hate to Rays fans. They put up with a lot of crap during their history. So for the good of Tampa Bay and Florida baseball, I hope that this guy's as good of an owner for them as Steve Cohen's been for us.
Yeah, exactly. I know one of my cousins in Florida, her 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 husband's a Rays fan, and he's excited about the prospect of a new owner. And I told him, I says, I hope you guys have found your Steve Cohen because
Yeah,
I
exactly.
can tell you I can tell you we us Met fans we're lucky enough to find the right person to own a team. That's what in the end you guys need to do to avoid a situation with what happened to with Oakland.
Yeah, you got to get a good owner in there, and he's got to have a vision for the team, as we saw Steve Cohen and the Cohen family, his wife, and everything have done. They've really transformed that team and the feeling around that team, and hopefully we see the same thing in Florida over there. So, good luck to the Tampa Bay Rays and their fans, even after they bitch slapped the Mets last week at Citi Field. Speaking of getting bitch slapped, our New York Rangers got bitch slapped out of the Eastern Conference Final last year by the Florida Panthers, and I got to tell you,
Ugh, that
as as much respect as I had for the Florida Panthers and still have, I didn't think a year later at this time we'd be talking about them winning their second straight cup. And last night, that's just what happened as the Panthers went out there and dominated the Edmonton Oilers at home, winning this thing 5-1 in Game 6, not giving Edmonton a chance to take this thing back, and they win their second straight Stanley Cup. Dan, what was your thoughts on this version of the Stanley Cup final from the rematch from last
as
season?
far as they see it, Florida doesn't even deserve that championship team. There was no life in that building when they won the cup. I just saw like Florida is a huge chunk of snowbirds. When I've been to Florida, I've seen cars with logo. When I see cars that have sports team logos, I see a lot of sports team logos from other states in Florida.
Oh yeah, man.
And
I've actually been to that stadium a couple of times, the Florida Panthers arena down there in Sunrise, Florida. I've been to it like 2 or 3 times, and I gotta say, all 3 times I was there, there were more Rangers because it was Rangers and Panthers games that I went to down there. When I was lucky enough that while during spring training, when I'd go down there to see the Mets, the Rangers would just so happen to be playing the Panthers at that same time. So a couple of times I got a chance to catch those games, and yeah, there was always more Rangers fans in the arena than Panthers fans. And just like you said, Dan, me and you were texting after they won the cup the other night, and it was just so like insulting and depressing to see you just won the Stanley Cup, and it looked like they were like, okay, ready to go home. You know, they didn't care. They kind of cheered a little bit when they won the cup. You saw a little bit of excitement, but then it's like as soon as things died down and they were waiting for the trophy presentation to start, you know, people were just sitting there not knowing what to do. In New York, remember, Dan, we'd be seeing all the Rangers fans up on the ground chanting, "We want the cup. We want the cup." And everybody be going nuts. There'd be a buzz in the building. And in Florida, it was just dead.
What the heck? I know if this was New York, there'd be celebrating like crazy. That there'd be streets going nuts. And let me tell you something. People were thinking like, "Oh, that's a wild thing," when they accidentally put a couple of things and dents in the cup that are going to need to be prepared. That is nothing compared to the legendary stories of the 1994 Rangers. Look it up. There was some wild celebrating going to the cup that I heard that when they returned to the cup today, keeper of the cup to the Hall of Fame, they had to do a lot of repair work to the Stanley Cup with how much celebrating there was going on with that cup.
Yeah, something tells me it wasn't the crazy hijinks of Mark Messier taking the cup to all his neighbors' lawns at 5 o'clock in the morning. I don't know if you saw the video. They had the Alexander Barkov, the captain of the Florida Panthers, taking the cup around to his neighbors at 5 o'clock in the morning. You wouldn't have had the opportunity at 5 o'clock in the morning in New York City the night the Rangers won the cup to get that cup out of there to your neighbor's front lawn. You know what I mean? There would have been too many people in your way. There would have been too many people trying to get that cup, and the buzz would have just been insane. So it's crazy to me.
Exactly. We would have been hungover if the Rangers won the cup. Both of us would have been hungover, without a doubt.
No doubt about it. And give credit to Edmonton and the Canadian fans too. If a Canadian team, Edmonton being the one that was there, but if any of those Canadian teams had won a Stanley Cup, would have been the first time that a Canadian team has won since 1993, and those cities would be going nuts up there if they won a cup. Florida, not so much. So a little disappointing.
Yeah, exactly.
Seeing that.
Yeah, I feel like Edmonton, they would have needed riot police if they even have riot police in Canada, because I don't really know much about Canada because it's a different country. But if they did have riot police, they would have needed the riot police if Edmonton won the cup.
Yeah, no doubt about it. They would have been going crazy. There are a lot of places that would have been going crazy if they won the cup, and unfortunately, Sunrise, Florida was not one of them. So congratulations to the Panthers. They have a really good, really deep team. Sam Bennett scoring 4 goals in the Stanley Cup final game. First time that's happened since Wayne Gretzky did it in 1985. So, got to give all the credit in the world to that team. They're a very deep team. They're going to have a lot of decisions to make with the cap. And speaking of decisions, Dan, let's talk about the Rangers for a sec. Yeah, what are you going to say?
Another thing I got to say, how the heck did the Florida Panthers back in the day embrace something like a rat? That's a New York thing. I saw a Rangers fan group on Facebook say like, "Oh, what would you think if the Rangers had a mascot? What would it be?" And someone said a rat, and I said, "Yeah, unfortunately, some idiots in Florida made a rat their thing." When I don't think Florida has a thing known for rats. So unfortunately, though, I said probably it would be a pigeon. I think.
I can see that, but luckily the Rangers are like the Yankees, though. The Rangers don't need a bush league, asshole running around in the audience wearing their jersey. It's the I'm a Mets fan. The Mets need it. The Mets need Mr. Met. We all love Mr. Met. But the Rangers have more like that classic, we don't need a mascot running around in the stands for us. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. But I was just playing along, hypothetically having fun with it, saying like, yeah, probably would be a pigeon.
It probably would. You're probably right about that. So that's not too bad. And by the way, why wouldn't the Florida Panthers have a panther or at least a cat as their mascot?
Yeah, exactly. Why a rat? Why a rat? Who thought of that idea to throw rats? Florida isn't known for having rat problems. That's a New York thing. Rats are a New York thing. I'm sorry, Florida. Rats are our thing. Have you ever seen how viral a lot of locals were making a big deal about Pizza Rat? How New Yorkers embraced Pizza Rat? That's our thing. Last thing I checked, the Bright Line, whatever the heck that thing is, I don't see giant rats on the Bright Line.
Fair enough. You're right about that. And I'm telling you, the couple of times that I went to that stadium, I did not see any rats. So you are dead on about that. Talking about the Florida Panthers arena down there. But Dan, let's focus on the Rangers for a second. A couple of more things before we get out of here. The Rangers now, they're in a big transition. They traded Chris Kreider last week, which broke a lot of our Ranger fan hearts. There's another guy hanging on the balance right now in Mika Zibanejad, another guy in Keandre Miller. We're not really sure what's going on. One or both of those guys might be traded. Mika, though, is less likely. He's got the no movement clause in his contract. He's got, apparently a new house that they bought. We were talking about it became newsworthy a couple of months ago that Mika Zibanejad and his family were selling their Upper West Side condo or whatever they had, townhouse in Manhattan. But apparently he was just selling it to get another house. So him and his wife and his family just bought another house in New York. So I don't think they really intend on leaving too much. Mika Zibanejad's wife even just came out recently and said that it's funny how, these rumors get started and everything where it's unsourced and the journalistic standards and all this kind of nonsense. But so even though it seems in a lot of ways, especially with the jettison of Chris Kreider, that it's possible that Mika is on his way out as well, which would really open up a lot more cap space and flexibility for the Rangers. But it also seems less likely with them getting the house and the wife coming out and saying that stuff. What do you think is going on behind the scenes here, Dan?
I just have a weird feeling, even though maybe it would work better in our favor if Mika got moved, he's probably still going to be on a team. Another player that needs to be on the lookout, that guy in the Blackhawks, something Towns, I forget his name.
Oh, you mean Jonathan Taves?
Yeah, Jonathan Taves. I feel like the Rangers need to take a flyer on him.
They could. Now, Jonathan Taves isn't even on the Blackhawks now. You remember him from the Blackhawks. That's where he played most of his career alongside Patrick Kane. But Taves actually, he didn't retire. I was even going to say unofficially retired, but he didn't even do that. He's just been out of the league. They said a couple of years ago he got extended COVID, and it really screwed up his lungs. And he said he's been skating fresh and free now. He's 36, 37 years old. He's fully healthy now. And it looks like the Rangers could be a landing spot for him. And it would come at a very cheap price, too, which the Rangers could use with these cap, limitations the Rangers have. They don't really have much cap room. But I don't know, Dan. Chris Drury, the Rangers GM, I like the guy a lot. He's made a lot of good moves. He's also made a lot of bad moves. I just don't know what to expect. I don't know what he's planning. The Rangers still have their first-round pick in the draft this year, which they could hold and pick someone. They could also flip and include in a trade. So there's a lot of different ways the Rangers could go, and I just don't know how that's going to unfold. What do you think? What way do you think Drury's going to go, and what way do you think he should go?
I just feel like he needs to go after the very player I said. He needs to do that. Also, I just feel like there's a big move coming up some point before the draft or after the draft. There is a big move coming up soon, and it's going to shock the entire NHL. I have a feeling we could see like a player like maybe like I think even Austin Matthews could be on our radar.
Well, yeah, me and you talked about that possibility last week. Matthews is unhappy up there. He has a no movement clause in his contract. A lot of people feel optimistic that he'd be more than willing to waive that to come down to Broadway here and play for the Rangers. But then, we have to also remember that in order to have the flexibility to do that, you would probably either have to trade Mika Zibanejad before that move or include him in that deal, which would also mean convincing him to leave, because Chris Kreider leaving is great and helps the Rangers. It's great from a cap perspective, and it frees up a little bit of room for the Rangers to figure out what they're going to do with some of their unrestricted free agents and maybe bringing in a guy or two to help out. But, nothing of no top six players, along those lines. It'll be bottom six guys. But, when you look at a guy like Zibanejad, it's really going to hinge on what he, is willing to do in regards to waiving a trade,
Yeah, and I feel like it's the utmost importance for the progress of this team to move Zibanejad.
Yeah, unfortunately, I've been a big fan of him during his tenure here, and him and Chris Kreider, we all became a fan of them and the hashtag hockey hugs that us Ranger fans loved over the last couple of years. But hey, sometimes you got to move on, and era ends, and unfortunately, it looks like the New York Rangers are at that point, and they're going to be going forward with JT Miller as the go-to guy on this team, and so let's hope Drury makes all the right moves. And finally, Dan, let's wrap this thing up as Dan gets up and walks away. Let's wrap this thing up.
I had to turn on the light because we were running out of daylight.
No problem. We're running out of daylight, but we're just about running out of show as well. As one last thing, they got Game 6 tonight. Oklahoma City a chance to close things out and win their first ever championship. Against Indiana, looking to extend the series one more time, taking things back to Oklahoma City for a potential Game 7. We've heard that, a couple of the guys on Indiana, Halliburton, are banged up. What do you think, Dan? Do you think that he's going to play tonight? And do you think that this goes 7, or does Oklahoma City close things out tonight?
I have a feeling Halliburton isn't going to play tonight. I also have a feeling Oklahoma is going to wrap this thing up, and they'll be celebrating, and I can't even barely call it Oklahoma City because it doesn't even look like a city. It's one of these cities that I don't even know if you could even call it a city. Some of these cities, some of these cities, I wonder if you could even call it a city, because I don't know. I've never been to Oklahoma City, but everything I've seen about Oklahoma City looks like it's not even really a city. Similar to when I went to Indianapolis that time when I went to the Super Bowl, didn't even feel like a city.
Yeah, I hear you. And Oklahoma City, definitely, they've never won any major championships. The only one that Indianapolis has ever won was the 2006 Colts. So it's going to be either a first major championship overall for Oklahoma City, or a first. It's going to be in a comeback effort. If Indiana can pull this off in 6 and 7, it'll be the first NBA title for that city. So I'm with you though, Dan. I think Oklahoma City is just way too talented, and they get it done tonight. They it really is crazy when you look at that roster and you look at the contracts too. These guys are all young kids, 22 to 25, just making no money yet in the NBA, all still on their rookie deals. And this Oklahoma City team is going to have a chance to be really deadly for a long time. And if they're able to seal the deal and win this championship, it really reminds me of the Oklahoma City team that we saw, back in 2012, when they had all those young guys like KD and Russell Westbrook and, James Harden on that Oklahoma City team that lost to the ridiculous Miami Heat that had Chris Bosh and Dwayne Wade and LeBron James. So there was no super team standing in their way this year. So it looks like Oklahoma City is finally going to take things, home like they should have 12, 13 years ago with that. When you look back at the talent on that team they had, that's crazy. And I'm sure when we look back in 10 years on this team, we're going to be saying to ourselves, wow, how are all those guys on the same team?
Yeah, that is just crazy. And I can tell you, as soon as this NBA Finals is wrapped up, it's going to be looking to the off season, and hopefully, where will the Knicks go from the whole debacle that happened with we're having trouble finding a coach.
Yeah, it's true. So the Knicks are still going to be looking for a coach. I was going to bring that up today, but there's really nothing to report on. Unfortunately, is they, we're still in a holding pattern. Leon Rose.
I heard even they couldn't even get an interview with Ted Scheckler. I heard.
Well, Ted Scheckler and his basketball emporium definitely were not able to return the Knicks call. But, we've heard there is kind of a door open for Jason Kidd. I don't really know how the Knicks would go about that, but they've already been turned down, permission from the Mavericks. But apparently a couple of the writers think that it's still a possibility. I guess we'll see how that unfolds. But as for right now, this moment, nothing concrete to report on about the Knicks and their head coach, unfortunately. So we're still just living at the whim of, the president, Leon Rose, and the owner, James Dolan, who I'm convinced still to this day that he is the one that made the call to whack Tom Thibodeau. And that was, in my opinion, still the wrong call. But, we won't know until a year from now when we're sitting here how the Knicks season ended a year from now. If they win a championship, I'll gladly say I was wrong. If they don't, and they don't even get as far as they did this year, I think a lot of Knicks fans are going to be pissed off at ownership. But other than that, Dan, I think that's just about going to do it for us here on this edition of Best Seat in the House podcast. Before we get out of here, too, and do our plugs, I know we've done this a couple of times, I want to give one more shout out to the great Anthony Cumia, because our numbers have just continued to go up. We now actually have 1,700 people watching on all three things on Twitter and YouTube and everything. So, and Rumble today. We're on Rumble for the first time as well today. So thanks.
I could tell you, if we get a silver play button, do you know? I'm gonna make sure Anthony sees that award the next time if we win that, because I just want to show that how much I feel like that is the ultimate way to show how much we appreciate that. Then to show him that thanks to him, we would have that award. Like, I would treasure that award, and I would forever credit Anthony Cumia for us winning that. If we win a silver play button, I will forever credit him for that.
Oh, I will too. You're right about that, Dan. And with that, that's going to do it for us today on the Best Seat in the House podcast. I want to thank everybody for hanging out with us here on this Thursday night. Dan, before we get out of here, anything you'd like to plug for yourself?
Sure, my Twitter, Bobo103NYC. You can follow me there on Twitter, X, whatever you call it. I don't know. I've just gotten so used to calling it Twitter, just like how a lot of Met fans, even myself, have accidentally called Citi Field Shea Stadium. The same thing, and how I've called MetLife Stadium Giant Stadium, kind of similar to the same thing. So it's kind of like that, the way why I call it Twitter still. The best way to explain it. And also Instagram, Bobo718DK. You can find me there. YouTube, one word, Daniel Curl, whenever I upload stuff there. Definitely remember to subscribe to our Patreon. Our Patreon's only $5 a month. That's for the show. That's when you get our Patreon exclusive show on Sunday. You also get one week early access to my YouTube videos whenever I upload stuff on YouTube. I might figure out how to upload stuff. I'm hoping someone oh, maybe I can get someone to go with me to film some of this stuff. If I can get somebody to film me when I take part in this little promotional thing they're doing to promote the new season of Squid Game, I'll maybe somehow get footage of that for people to see how that turns out. I don't know how it's going to turn out, but I'm hoping it turns out well. I'm going full Rocky on training montage for that because I want to try to win. I want to try to put my best foot forward and win this thing. And
That's
and
right.
Also, yeah, and definitely sports show. Also, don't forget tracks. I admitted I'll be wrapping up the. I had to do a lot of stuff this week, but I'll be wrapping up the stuff that happened last Sunday over in Mexico City with the NASCAR Cup Series. First time since 1958 NASCAR has held a race outside the United States. Last time that had happened, I think it was in Canada. And a certain driver by the name of Richard Petty that had a nice little career for himself, got his first win that race back in '58. So
very nice. Yeah, I think I heard once or twice about that guy, Richard Petty.
Yeah, had a nice little career and had a little character based on him in a certain movie called Cars.
That's right. And make sure, like Dan said, if you want to check out his little show he's got on our Patreon, Trackside Minute, you can check that out. We got the on the bottom scroll on the bottom. You can check that out. Subscribe to our Patreon, patreon.com/Best Seat in the House podcast. It's only $5. I want to thank everybody for hanging out with us. Also, I don't know how I missed this earlier, but we had a Jason Gear hanging out with us here saying, Bobo, want to give a shout out to your fans?
Thank you. Thanks for the support. Thanks for the support. Sorry we got to you a little late. We did get to you. So big thank you for your support. We love all our fans. Well, I wish I could extend you all a high five, but thank you all for support. Keep up the support. We'll see if you subscribe to our Patreons. We'll see you guys Sunday. If you don't, we'll see you guys next week on Thursday live as always.
That's right. So thank you everybody once again for hanging out with us. Once again, another shout out to the great Anthony Cumia for setting us up with our record-breaking nearly 1,800 live viewers today. And don't forget, if you want to check out his great show on 77 ABC here in New York City, you can also check him out on compoundcensored.com. Also, don't forget our buddies Eastside Dave and Aaron Berg have a new show called Modern Man. You can check them out with that. And Eastside Dave's great show by himself, the Davey Mac Sports Program. So, for my co-host, the great Daniel Bobo Curlin, and the executive producer Grimace, I'm Rob Kramer. This is the Best Seat in the House podcast, everybody. And we'll catch you next time. Have a great weekend, everybody. Let's go Mets.
Yep.